Okay, let's focus on the triangular mid-segment. Okay, so what does that mean? Triangular, okay, that sounds like a triangle. Mid-segment. Okay, let's break it down. Mid, what does that sound like? Mid, like middle, okay. Segment, well, segment. So it's gonna be something about a triangle and a segment in the middle. Pretty much. Let's focus over here. Let me just draw a triangle. Any triangle. And let's say I find the midpoints. Okay, so each segment has a point in the middle, right? Let's say I find in one segment, let's say that's the point in the middle. And let's say on the other segment here is a point in the middle. And then there's another midpoint, right? So I find the midpoints. If I choose any of those 2 points, any of the two midpoints, if I was to connect them, let's say this one, I create a mid segment. Okay, so there will be times, most of of your homework for me to emphasize that it's a midpoint. I'm gonna one of my side, I'm gonna cut it like this. So I will tell you that one side is equal to the other side. Why my goal is something like this, just to emphasize that yeah, that point it's the point in the middle, so it's a midpoint. So I connect the midpoint, so we call that a mid segment. So what's so important about the mid-segment? Okay, let's see. Let me highlight it in red. Let me do, looking at this mid-segment, what's so important about the mid-segment? I see it's parallel to another side. Okay, good, good. The mid-segment's parallel to another side. But the interesting part is that here at the bottom, this space that I highlighted in yellow is the same as the mid segment. But then this other side that I'm gonna highlight in green, it's also as big as the mid segment. Okay, so what does that mean, Mr. Leonzo? That segment, the big segment, is twice as big as the mid segment. For example, let's say I was to tell you the mid segment is 5. I'm gonna say the entire side has to be 10. The reason why is because there are two mid segments in the big side. So not only they're parallel, but the relationship on them, the mid segment is half of the big segment, or the big segment is half of the mid segment. Okay, hope that made sense. Okay, the little one is half of the big one, and the big one is twice as big as the little one. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's take a look at our work over here. Number 27 on our notes. It says solve for x. Whoa, there's a bunch of things here that have x, and I'm gonna tell you, you don't have to use all of them. You have to use a side and then the mid segment. So I see this side. Let me highlight the mid segment. I see there's a mid segment right there. The one side that is parallel to it is this one. Okay, and I just said the mid segment and the side that are parallel to it are not the same side, but I mentioned a relationship between them. Okay, what I'm going to do, the way I'm gonna solve this, let me solve this. The mid segment, what do we know about the mid segment? The mid segment is x plus 18th. So I'm gonna go x plus 18th. And I'm gonna multiply all of this times 2. Because remember how the mid segment is smaller? So if you multiply it by 2, it's going to equal to x plus 30. The mid segment, all of it times 2, is equal to the side that is parallel to it. You might be like, what am I going to do with the other segments that have x's? Nothing, nothing, absolutely nothing. They are just there to confuse you. I just want you to pay attention to the picture. I want you to choose a mid segment and the side that is parallel to it. There's going to be extra information. Doesn't mean you have to use it all. Okay, now go back to what I just wrote. 2 times x plus 18 and all this equal to x plus 30. Now, let me just treat it like an algebra question. I remember in algebra, when there's an equal sign, I separate my sides. Let me separate them. And the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of parentheses. We learned back in the day something called distributive property. So the number outside of the parentheses, I'm going to multiply to the terms on the inside. I know 2 times x is 2x plus 2 times 18 is 36. And all of this is equal to x plus 30. Now I see I have letters on both sides. I have numbers on both sides. It would be nice if I could combine my like terms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move letters to one side and numbers without a letters to the other side. So looking at the letters, let me move this positive x. Let me move it over here to the left as a negative x. Don't forget to switch the sign. And then this plus 36, let me move it to the other side as a minus 36. Again, I want letters on one side and just numbers without letters on the other side. So on the left, I have a 2x minus 1x. Okay, so that gives me 1x. This is equal to positive 30 minus 36. I remember that when they have different signs, I subtract and keep the sign of the large one. Or I could be looking at this as a sport event. Let's say positives are playing negatives. The positive score 30 points, the negative score 36. My question is, who won by how many? So I'm going to write this as a -6. Or I could have seen it as the negatives 1 by 6, or I could have just said 30 and 36, subtract them, and keep the sign of the large one, however you want to see it. If there's still a number in front of x, other than 1, if there's still a number in front of it, divide both sides by that number. But in this case, we don't. I have that x is equal to -6. So when it says solve for x, the value of x is going to be -6. It is fine for x to be negative, so don't be surprised. Let's take a look at question number 28. Look at the median, what we call the mid-segment, right? Mid-segment. Look at the mid-segment and look at the side that is parallel to it. That's the information you're going to be using. Anything else, it's extra. Okay, so I'm going to choose the mid-segment is 2x plus 26. And all of it, I'm going to multiply by 2. And this is going to equal to x plus 22. Some of you might be wondering, how can 2x be smaller than 1x? And then here, plus 26 be smaller than plus 22? My answer to that is, how do you know the value of x? If x is negative, of course, 2x is smaller than 1x. Of course, 2x could be less than 1x if x is negative. So I have a belief that x is going to be negative here as well. Okay, so let's continue. Let's see. Let me take a look at this as an algebra question. So let me separate my sides through the equal sign. Let me get rid of parentheses. Let me multiply that 2 to the inside. So that gives me 4x plus 52 equals x plus 22. When I combine like terms, so let me move the x's to one side. So this positive x, let me move it over here as a minus x. This positive 52, let me move it over as a negative 52. So on the left side, I have 4x minus 1x. So that gives me 3x. On the right side, 22 minus 52. That gives me negative 30. Okay, there's a number besides 1, there's another number in front of x. So let me divide both sides by 3. Negative 30 divided by positive 3 will give me negative 10. Yeah, I was expecting x to be negative. So cool. This is what we call, again, mid-segment, because you guys see how it's a segment in the middle of the triangle.